السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم من همزه ونفخه ونفثه. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى لا سيما المصطفى صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. I praise Allah the Almighty alone, and I send the best peace and blessings upon His Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. ثم أما بعد. In the sound hadith, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, إذا صلت المرأة خمسها وصامت شهرها وأطاعت زوجها وحفظت فرجها قيل لها ادخلي الجنة من أي أبوابها شئت. In this hadith, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam delivers a good news and a glad tidings to women in general by saying there are certain things that if a woman fulfills properly, all the gates of heaven will be open for her, and it will be said to her on the day of judgment, you may enter heaven from whichever gate you desire. The first was to pray the 5 daily prayers, and we noticed that there was no mention to the nawafil or the voluntary prayers. The second was to fast during the month of Ramadan, and the third was to obey the husband, and the fourth was to protect and guard for chastity. So we don't have a problem with the first and the second because every Muslim does so, whether male or a female. These are the basics of the deen, with which if somebody does not fulfill the salah or the fasting, he is not counted as a Muslim. Many sisters have an issue with the third one, which is وَأَطَاعَتْ زَوْجَهَا, and she must obey her husband. Especially with the generations who have been either born and raised here or migrated here and adopted some Western ideology. They say, what do you mean that أَطَاعَتْ زَوْجَهَا? In fact, we have to realize that for every project, for every plane, for every ship, for every caravan, there has to be a leader. And this leader is either appointed or elected. And it cannot be more than one leader at once. Imagine if there are 2 drivers for the same vehicle. And when we have 2, that means each and everyone has his own or her own mentality. So I decided to make a right turn, and the other driver decided to make a left turn. What would be the result? A chaos, a disaster. So that's why we give the leadership to one of the 2. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, إِذَا كُنْتُمْ ثَلَاثَ فَأَمِّرُوا. So when I give the leadership to one of the 2 or the 3, it does not necessarily mean this person is the best of them or the dearest to Allah of all of them. Rather, it means that this person is in a charge for the responsibility of leading the group or the caravan or flying the plane or sailing the ship. Then everybody else must understand that there is a leader. I am his assistant. And that's why Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, even in his farewell speech and before his death, he said, "Istawsu bin nisa'i khayra." He addressed men and he said, be kind to your women. فَإِنَّهُنَّ عَوَانٌ عِنْدَكُمْ. They are your assistants. So it does not mean that any of them is superior or inferior to the other. Will you now focus on the hadith that if a woman fulfills what a man gets to fulfill, and meanwhile she understands that this leadership at home, if a woman is married, or if she is a daughter, the father is the leader at home, so she assists me in this regard. That maintains the marriage life properly. That in most cases dissolve problems even if they occur, and they prevent them from occurring. Most of the marriage counseling I attend, I find out that the problems basically arise as a result of competition at home. There are 2 leaders. He's a leader and she is a leader. And every one of them is competing over the kids to follow whom or whoever of them. That doesn't work. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said في سورة الروم ومن آياته أن خلق لكم من أنفسكم أزواجا لتسكنوا إليها وجعل بينكم مودة ورحمة إن في ذلك لآيات لقوم يتفكرون, which means, and amongst his signs and blessings in this universe, that he created for you spouses from amongst yourselves. Then he created this love and compassion between the couple in order to experience a happy marriage life. So if the marriage life is established on love, compassion, and cooperation in order to fulfill what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded, then the couple will be successful. But when the marriage life is established on the basis of competition, every one of them is competing with the other with regards to the leadership, with regards to whose words should be heard, and so on, it will not last for long. Soon, if it is not next month, next year, soon this marriage will collapse. That's why when a woman came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and she was an outspoken woman, she said, Ya Rasulullah, how come men get to go out to work and go for jihad, and even if they get killed, they enter Jannah, and we're sitting at home, we're not doing anything other than raising the kids and taking the responsibility of raising them even after they die, if they die. So they get to enter Jannah and they have a magnificent reward. What about us? So Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam gathered the companions and said, have you ever heard any more eloquent woman like this woman? Then he asked her to go and deliver the message to every woman, because she was representing the ladies, that إن حسن تبعل إحداكن لزوجها وطاعتها لربها يعدل ذلك كله. For being a good wife, obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, cooperating with the husband in fulfilling what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded, is equivalent to all what you stated. All the man's jobs and tasks of going out to work, or even supporting the country in the deen and going on a battlefield and dying for the sake of Allah, that you don't have to do any of that. But being a good wife, being obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, looking after your responsibility is equivalent to all of that. He said, كُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. Every one of you is a guardian, and every one of you will be held accountable and will be asked about those who are under his guardianship. Similar to a man who is guardian and looking and responsible for his family, the wife is a guardian and she's responsible for the family as well, for her kids and the household and so on. Islam was the only religion who appointed a great portion, whether in the Quran or the Sunnah, to state and mandate full rights for women. A whole chapter in the Quran is called Surah An-Nisa, women, one of the long chapters, which stated many of the ahkam pertaining to women that did not appear in any other sharia or law before Islam. In many incidents, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam addressed men and enjoined upon them to be kind and gentle to women. Even whenever a woman is a mother, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, a man asked him, Man ahaqqu an-nasi bi husni sahabati? Who have more rights upon me? So Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, your mother. And the question was repeated twice. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in every time he said, your mother, your mother, your mother. Then in the fourth time he said, then your father. So how can, after all what we have heard of either verses or chapters of the Quran or a hadith pertaining to women, one might think that a woman was not paid her rights in full in Islam. Versus, you all know that just 50 years ago in this country, a woman was treated not as a human being, not as a full human. Till today in Judaism, a woman is held responsible, and in Christianity, is held responsible for any mistake. In theology, they believe that in the original sin, and a woman was totally responsible for expelling Adam from heaven. The Quran